in Montreal. Oh, okay, got it. We are based in Montreal and offering different services to facilitate transition of PhDs and research personnel from academia to the industry. So recruitment is one of them, but we offer also training sessions and workshops like this one. Yeah, feel free to reach out even after this event if you have some questions for us. It will be a pleasure. So I left you the mic, Bahare.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the workshop. So first, I share my screen. Okay, so yeah, welcome to the workshop. And today we are talking about the transitioning from academia to industry in neuroscience. So yeah, as Sarah told already, my name is Bahare Samadi. I have a bachelor in civil engineering. I worked some years after that, and after I realized that I like to get back to the university and research work, so I did a master's and a PhD in biomedical engineering, focused on biomechanics, specialized in human gait analysis, pediatric rehabilitation, and AI. And I finished my PhD at the end of 2020, and then I worked as a biomedical scientist in the motion lab of Shriners Hospital for Children. And then I decided to join Adoc Talent Management to have contribution to their mission. And feel free to reach me whenever after this event you have any question, or even during this workshop, feel free to stop me anytime, have questions or share your opinion or having some discussion. So as Thomas talked about Adoc, so we are the first consulting firm in recruitment of PhD profiles. So we are a team of we are a hybrid team of PhD graduates and human resource professionals, and we have 3 offices in Paris, Brussels, and Montreal, focusing on recruitment, research, and innovation and training. So first, I would like to know what are your expectations with regards to this workshop. If you see here, there is menti.com. If you enter this address, you will need a code. So this is the code here, and you could write your answers. So could you have access to the Menti and write your answers regarding your expectation about this workshop? Okay, yeah, I'm seeing the answers. Any other answer? Okay, so yeah, we will answer. We will cover most of the question in this workshop, but yeah, feel free to reach us when you have more questions. Okay, I get back to the presentation, and I will share with you at the end the file of the presentation, so you don't need to write down anything. So what are the companies needed? They need experts and executives. Oh, sorry. They need experts and executives with high potential. So the answer to their questions are the PhD holders, because they are innovative. They know how to answer to the questions, how to find the solution when they face different problems. So what percentage do you think would find an academic position after they finish their studies? So I go to the Mentimeter again. You could vote again if you have any guess about the percentages of PhD graduates who goes, okay, 10. So actually, it's more than that, but it depends on the year after the PhD defense. So there is a study which has been done on 2017, on Emploi 2017 and PhD Detective. It says that 1 year after the academia, it's almost 67% of PhD holders accept the PhD position. But when it goes to 5 years after, this percentage will decrease and they are more attracted to industry. And it could be due to many reasons. It could be because they don't find any permanent position in academia, or many other reasons. So a study which has been done in 2011, it shows that 40% of PhD holders, they accept the academic positions, but there isn't any more recent study published, but the statistics are almost the same. And the rest, they are interested and they get jobs in management, in health, in sales, and other departments. And it could be logic because between 2020 and 2017, 50%, we had a 50% increase in the number of PhD graduates, according to Statistics Canada, but the number of positions in academia and university, like professors, it hasn't been changed since 2009. So that's the reason that this number cannot be more than 40%. And regarding other sectors than academia, there are people who goes to public sector, private sector, and self-employment, which the private sector has the higher percentage since they can provide more opportunities like the large national and international companies, small startups, or intermediate business. So we need to know which kind of skills we need after finishing the PhD or any kind of research research study, such as like master's or postdoc or PhD. So what kind of skill do we need to start our job? So first, we need to know what is the skill. So it's what you learn during your studies. It's the abilities that you have developed, the knowledge that you have, and most of the times you don't know, you are not aware of what you have developed during all of these years that you did research. You think that that it's all about the technical aspects, because we have focused a lot on our research project, all of the technical aspects. So we just don't remember and don't, we remember, but don't really think about the other skills that we have developed. So it's about to find how to present them and how to find a relation between what we have learned and how we could transfer that and translate that in a common word for the industry. So as you all know, PhD is a multitude of skills. So if you talk and think about the skills that we develop during each PhD phase, we can find how we can use that in our job. So for example, what kind of skills do you think you have developed during the literature review? You could share your idea by talking or in the chat, whichever you would like. So anyone, any comment which? Okay, so I continue, but yeah, don't hesitate to just stop me and share your ideas. So yeah, when you start the first phase, which is literature review, you learn how to have a research, how to find the resources that you need, in which way you do the research, and to find the resources that you need and how to apply them and use in a way that you need. In terms of planning, we develop all the planning because we have different deadlines to meet. We need to plan for our pre-doc exam. We need to meet the deadlines for submitting our articles, for conferences, for submitting our thesis. And then it comes to the data collection. So for data collection, it depends on the data and the nature of your project. Like for me, I needed to collect the data of the gait of people. So I needed to communicate with people. I needed to explain my project for people who are not in my field or who doesn't have any background or any technical knowledge about what I was doing. So I needed to know how to talk and communicate with different stakeholders. I needed to use the Motion Lab, which was shared between different groups. So I needed to communicate with them to manage the resources. And then you learn also the technical skills during data collection, how to clean the data, how to realize that the data has been collected correctly, how to do statistical analysis, and then we need to do the research presentation. So what we learned during that, how to present our work, how to improve our skills in writing, in talking, and meet the deadlines. So these are all the skills that people who do graduate research students, research studies, they learn, and there are all the skills that are easily transferable to other sectors after graduations to find a job. So what do you think that which one are the skills that are important for the companies and the employers look for that? So you could vote. Okay, so yeah, as most of you mentioned, yeah, the scientific and technical expertise, which depends on the project and is different for everyone. And then, as you mentioned, the transferable skills, the methods, analytical thinking, collaboration. So, and these are the things that the PhD, sorry. Okay, so these are the skills that the PhD population on 2014 thought that they are useful to transfer to their company. So they gave the most important percentage, the higher percentage, to technical and scientific skills. But is it the same? Are there the same skills that employers think that are useful for them? If we see other slide, we see that the expectations of the recruiters, the employers, are not the same as what graduate students, graduate degree holders think. So for them, it was the technical skill which was important, but the recruiters believes that the problem solving is the most important skills that they are looking for to hire someone. And there is a study which has been done and published by Career Project. You could, I put the address here if you like to have more information. They have done complete and comprehensive studies on all kind of skills that PhD holders obtained during their studies, their research work, and you see that it's very various in different types. And then they also did another study, like in we published that in PhD Detectives. It was about what PhD developed and what the employer thinks that is needed to be improved. So they believe that it is very important for their employees, for the ones that they hired, the transferable skills that can be formalized. So for them, it is important the one that they hire would be able to transfer the skills and to show their soft skills in their company. So as I talked about, so if I go back here, so this study actually has been done and compared all kind of disciplines to see which disciplines develop which skills more. And so I have the numbers for the skills that neuroscience PhDs develop more than the other discipline, and you could vote and see which one you think that as someone in neuroscience discipline you could improve more than other disciplines. So, any idea? In terms of soft skills, what are the skills that neuroscientists develop more than other disciplines? Any idea, any thoughts? Okay, I go back. So as one person mentioned, yeah, these are the technical skills that a neuroscientist can develop more than the others, like statistical analysis, and that depends on the project. Could be on cellular and molecular methods, or could be like the behavior of analyzing the behavior of human or animals, and also working with different teams, understanding of human behavior, and cognitive and experimental process skills. And yeah, as you see here, these are like clinical thinking, analysis, adoption ability. These are the skills that neuroscientists develop more than the other people in other disciplines. If you like to find more about the the skills of the PhDs, we have published an article regarding the core competencies of PhDs, which you could go through that. And also the Council of Canadian Academia has published studies which talk about the mismatch between the PhD holders and their career prospects. And there is also another article that we collaborated with MyText about PhD detectives that talk about the employment trends in Canada. So let's talk about how you characterize your skills and how you plan your skills to find your job. So what do you think is the difference between your research versus talking about yourself? What do you think is the difference between them? If anyone, any opinion, you could talk, you could write down in the chat, whatever you feel like. Any idea? Okay, so yeah, talking about your research is the technical skills, it's the hard skills, and talking about yourself is the soft skills. And both of them is important. We cannot say just the technical and hard skills are important. It's important that you know how to transfer your skills in your work environment. So it is very important you have a very deep reflection and talk about how and why each activities you have done. So imagine yourself when you started in your lab as a master's or PhD student or postdoc. So what was the situation at that time regarding the project? For example, if you have started a project from the scratch, so the project didn't exist and your contribution was that to develop that project, answer the research question and find a solution and answer to a question that didn't exist, the answer didn't exist. Or maybe you are working on another project which was already started but needed to have development or continuing. So what was your role? What have you done for that? What were like in terms of contributing? Did you have any chance to communicate with other departments? Was it a multidisciplinary project or it was just in your lab? What was your contribution to your lab? Did you need to supervise the undergrad student, the trainees? So all of this things that you have done during each phase, you need to go through that and think about that and realize what was the skills that you have done regarding your role in the team and all of the contributions. So we don't have time to do that here, but this is a table that you could use that and write down your thoughts, and it gives you an idea about having a deeper reflection on your skills and on your career plan and aspirations. So what you need is to promote your skills. So how you could do that? You need to have you need to proceed 2 steps. First, you need to construct your career plan, and then you need to implement it smartly. So what does it mean to implement that smartly? It means that you have aspirations, you have skills, and there are many type of jobs, but there are the jobs that either you don't like or you don't have the skills. So it is important to find the job that you like and you have the skills about that. So that part is the realistic career option and career plan that you could plan for yourself and follow it. So you need to, when there is a job description or when there is a job that you want to apply, you need to find the responsibilities, the qualification, and then to see if you have them and what's the recruiter looking for to see if you have those or not. So it's all about the match. Maybe you have those skills, but it's important to present them and to find the common word that shows those skills that they are looking for. You have them. And in fact, you are the solution provider. You provide them the services, the consulting, and help them to develop their company. And then you grow yourself within your team and with their company. So you are a solution provider, not begging for a job. And it's all about the fit. And it is important for the recruiter, for the companies, it's important to find the fit. And it is more important for you, for your career plan, for your path, for your growth, to find something which is a good, something which is aligned with your interests, with your skills, with your expertise, and it motivates you to do a job and work more to find more skills for your future job. So when you want to present your skills, it is important to choose the words which are known for everyone, which are easy to everyone to understand, and not only for someone who has expertise in your field. So it's important, if you use abbreviations, you need to write the complete word also to make it simple and easy for people to understand, because they do the research and they do the research based on the things that they need and based on the keywords, and it is very important you choose the words that you fall into their search criteria. So the general method is LinkedIn, which is these days is the most important place that people are looking for the profiles and find a job, and then your resume, and then be prepared for the interview. So it's about as I said, it's about the fit. So when you are writing everything about your expertise in your resume, it's important that for each expertise that you have done, for each experience, you need to explain the situation and say what was the task that you have done and what was the result of that outcome. So these are important, how you use the verbs that shows exactly what you have done. So the structure of the CV, as you know, you need to write your skills first, all of the skills that you have. And it's important that you mention the skills that you really have and you're comfortable to do that. So if they ask you any question about that, you know how to answer. And then your experiences, it could be your experiences which was out of university, and also about the projects, even the small projects or big project that you have done during your graduate studies. And then your education, and it is based on each job, it is important to mention the things that are important for them. For example, if you are applying for a research and development job or for academia, for them maybe it's interesting to know if you have publication, if you have participated in the conferences, if you got awards. So it is needed to mention everything that is important for the job on your resume. So it means that for each job that you apply, you need to have different CV. You cannot have one and send it for every job, because it's different, the requirements for each company, for each post. And in your LinkedIn profile, it's important you mention the title of the jobs that you have done, the technical skills, and in LinkedIn, it could be long, it could cover everything, all of the details that you have done. So it makes you sure that if a company or if a recruiter looks for a specific candidate, you fall into that criteria and they could contact you. So when you are invited to an interview, you actually know the questions, because what they ask is first about all of the details of your CV. So they ask you what you have done, about your studies, about if you have any specific project that you have done. So it is important that if you mention something in your CV, as I said, you are fully remembered that. So being prepared about every word that you have written in your CV that you would be asked, and it would be better and perfect actually that if you write down everything, you have a pitch, you prepare yourself, you practice, and with everyone or even in front of the mirror, because when they ask you the questions, it's not only about the technical skills. They realize your soft skills. They realize if you could talk and express yourself in a organized structure, in having a stable structure, and you can express yourself clearly. So it is really important to consider everything, not just the technical. So they evaluate you in every aspect. So it's yeah, it was like a short workshop about the skills that you need, and we covered the specific skills that neuroscience has, and how to analyze your skills, how to present yourself, how to be prepared for your job. And yeah, I would like to know if it covered your expectation, if there are the messages for going home, the things that you learned. If you could share it with us. If you have any question, I would be happy to answer. And we have more trainings and workshop. So yeah, feel free to ask any question that you have. I would be happy to answer you.
And you can make use of the Q&A or the chat feature, or just turn on your mic and camera if you feel like that. I'll just ask one thing right off the bat. I'm wondering, Thomas or Bahare, if you could share like a link to your website or something, maybe in the chat, so that folks have that if they want to find out more about you know, once they're actually leaving there. I do see a few questions here coming through in the chat. So we have one here that said the talk was mostly about PhD, but what about if I want to transfer from Masters of Science to industry?
So actually, it was about the PhD, but in general, it's about someone who does the master research, or I mean, in general, from a research environment, from research work, because research master is also research. So it's kind of PhD, but shorter. So it's the same thing as that. And the good part is that the one who has a research master's, those 2 years is considered as a 2 years of work experience. So if you want to apply for a job and they say that minimum years of experience is 2 years, you could apply because you already have worked for 2 years on a research project. You were employee of your supervisor.
If you have any other questions, feel free to turn on your mics. And
I'm curious, just like maybe with the reaction ability there, how many of you in the audience are sort of looking in the next year or so to be applying for jobs in industry? Maybe you could give it like a thumbs up or something like that with the reactions. Yeah, so there's at least a few of you here. So I'll say it wouldn't hurt to keep in touch with these folks if you are finding yourself in that situation. So you know, don't hesitate to you know, send them a message or something as well. But I know it can feel like a bit of a scary event horizon as you're getting closer and closer to that, graduation date and trying to figure out what you'll do beyond that.
Actually, what I wish I had the opportunity, it was that having this kind of workshop in my last year, but my last year was during the COVID, so we didn't really have anything. But if I want to share something like as based on my experience, I would suggest everyone to have a very plan ABC about what they want to do after their PhD from the third year, because all of us have something in our mind, and we think, yeah, after my PhD, I will do that. I will go to this job, that job, but we don't really go to the details because we are too focused on our research project and we don't think about anything else or develop any other thing. And when we finish, we are not actually the same person at the end of our PhD as the first year. So the things that we wanted to do, it's not the same thing. So I suggest that everyone from the third year have different plans about the things that they want to do after their graduations, and do the research about that. So for example, someone likes to be a data scientist. So it needs to know what are the skills that they need to know. Is it enough what they learned during their research? Because it's really different from the industry, from the research that you do, it's different. Because for research, you have a project, you have unlimited time, you can try and error many methods, but if you are working somewhere, you cannot do that because it's about the money, about the resources, and many, for example, in my field, the algorithm, the models that I developed for my PhD thesis, I cannot use that for an industry project because first, the data that I was using was not big data set. So if I want to apply those methods, it would be very expensive. It takes forever in terms of time, in terms of money. So yeah, those are not really transferable. So if you want to be a data scientist, or I don't know, whatever, I'm talking about that because I know better that it was my experience. So I talk about that, but you need to go through all the job description and even go through the profiles of people on LinkedIn that has the job title that you're looking for, and see what skills they have, what kind of career path they had. So you try to learn that, or talk with the companies like us, because yeah, we know what are the skills, what are the requirements that employers are looking for, what is the part that is interesting. So these are the questions that you need to find the answers, and yeah, don't hesitate to contact us for any kind of question. We would be more than happy to help you. I put my LinkedIn and my email address on the slides, and yeah, we will share with you the slides after, and you could go to the webpage of the Adoc Talent Management and see all of the services.
Another question has come up here, which is, I think, okay, a really good one here, which is, what's the sort of timeline involved? So I'm assuming, finding myself in that situation coming out of a PhD, I know I wasn't thinking about timelines at all, but what would the timeline generally be, once you've defended and you've completed your PhD work to actually finding work?
Yeah, I cannot say.
So PhD or master's. So when you finish.
For myself, it was very fast actually, because I had started early. I had started like a few months earlier, and I had a network. So I had my offer maybe 2 weeks before my defense, because yeah, by the chance, the motion lab of Shriners Hospital were looking for someone with my expertise. So yeah, I was lucky, but you cannot really give a specific, but for myself, I had thought about between 3 to 6 months for that, but it's different. So that's why I think like 6 months before you start for that, you apply for the jobs and being prepared, because they are like a financial part of that is also important, because when we finish, we are not paid anymore. So yeah, we need to think about that ahead.
I might also add to also, because many of you, I think when you're a graduate student, you're constantly getting feedback about how to improve. And so, it's it can feel like a somewhat intimidating environment, I think, for many people. Whereas I think coming out of academia and into industry, you really need to prepare for wild success as well, because that will happen, especially with the credential like a PhD in front of your name. You will get offers really soon. So also be thinking about, beyond that, actually getting hired and preparing for wild success and negotiating and all of those things and finding the right position for yourselves there. So, like, I'll say from my anecdotal experience as well, like I defended the second last day I could in my 4th year and had a job offer within a week and started looking that same week. So prepare for wild success is a good tip, I'd say.
I think Thomas wanted to say something.
Yes, yeah, I wanted to add, so like Bahare said, there's no right answer in terms of timeline. It depends on the job market, of course, and on the job you are searching for. Usually you have time to prepare your employability before your defense, as your dissertation may be finished at this stage. Most of PhDs we are in contact with are already searching for jobs, even if their defense is like planned for in several months. I think that's a good idea, just to have a better sense of the market, maybe to compare different structures, different jobs, responsibilities. You can find, actually, we didn't mention this website. I don't know if you know this one, is ONET Online. I'm writing it on the chat. You can find every kind of roles and responsibilities associated to a role. So for example, you can put, so I let you browse the website, but it's only in English, and for US, well, it's US data mostly. But yeah, if you have developed some skills during your PhDs and you want to improve these skills, you want to develop these skills, you can put these skills on the website and they will find different roles that could match these skills. If you are a bit lost and you want to know better the job that could match your profile and your aspirations. But yeah, it's so ad hoc. I mean, it's a case by case. You'll have to adapt it and customize your profile.
I see another question here, which I think is, I'm going to assume is from somebody considering taking on the PhD here, which is, does the 4+ extra years to get a PhD financially make up for the 4 years of industry experience that could be gained after a Master's of Science?
I don't know. It's not an easy question to answer. Maybe Jessica knows or Thomas knows, but I personally think when you decide to do a PhD, it's better not to consider like if it adds anything in terms of financial, because PhD, like you go through a lot of hard time, challenging time. So I myself, I have no regret of doing a PhD, but you go through a lot of challenges. So if you want to consider that, if you can gain more with doing a PhD or do a master's and doing that work instead of that, I'm not sure if it would be a good comparison, but I let the others to answer this question.
Yeah, I think it very much depends on the kind of path that you want to take and whether a PhD will help you get to that goal. So, for example, there are people that get recruited into McKinsey right out of undergrad, for example, and if consulting is something that you want to go through a route, maybe that's better to just go directly. But there are some opportunities, for example, obviously working in private research institutions or in private labs or medical science liaison, where you need an advanced degree to do that. Like, very rarely do you see someone with a master's embarking on that. And those positions are quite lucrative, right? So if it boils down to pure financials, it really depends on the context, but I would think about it more in terms of like, what's the progression do you want to take, and does the PhD help you get there?
Yeah, exactly. I agree totally, Jessica. I mean, it depends on your aspiration, the path you want to take, and sometimes, and maybe often, actually, PhDs are not necessary for what you want to achieve. Of course, well, we see that more and more companies, as Jessica said, in consulting or in research, but out of academia, are searching for kind of hybrid profiles, like mixed between technical or scientific expertise and business vision. More and more companies are searching for this kind of profiles. In neuroscience, it's very true. I mean, you can find jobs and responsibilities that match your profile in marketing, in behavioral science, in even social science. Are searching for neuroscientists and backgrounds in these fields.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. So this is a very good opportunity to make a transition to Jessica, actually. If there aren't any more questions for Thomas and Bahare, but otherwise, as they said, you can still reach out to them and we can put you in contact with them as well. So don't hesitate to go to their websites, and I think their insight and advice is very valuable. So thank you, Thomas and Bahare, for your presentation. And so now I'm going to introduce Jessica Wilson. So Jessica got her PhD in neuroscience from Northwestern University in 2015, where she studied spinal motor neuron behavior in Parkinson's disease. In graduate school, she discovered a love for teaching and science outreach, and leveraged her experience to join iMotion, a software company that helps bring human biosensors tools to companies and researchers in different industries. She is now the technical director of iMotion, where she manages product specialists, consumer success and support teams, and continues to consult and train clients on how to bring neuroscience into multiple disciplines. So she's going to be a good example on a successful transition from academia to industry. So Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. The bio kind of gave away the spoilers, so you guys already know what the ending is. But what I hope to sort of accomplish through this talk is go over some of my experiences in transitioning and some of the observations that I've made, not just for myself, but things that I've seen other people go through, and hopefully, like codify that into some tips and tricks and things to think about. And I really like the presentation Bahare gave as sort of a prequel to this, because I think what the previous presentation went into is a lot of the what and the how. And what we're going to try and get into is the why. So where do you want to actually go next? And then how we can use that to leverage that into your next steps. So the way in which we can think about our career path, I think for some of us, we might have a very clear idea about where we want to go next. It could be to become a consultant. It could be to be a medical science liaison, or to start your own company. And for those who know what they want to do, the battle is already half over. But I think a lot of the challenges for PhDs is that a lot of the time we come in wanting to be professors. And that's certainly true for me. And we have this sort of rude awakening where we realize, I don't think this is the direction I want to take. And then we're all sort of left in this liminal space where we're like, well, where do we go now? And we focus so much on what the new destination is that we feel very lost and very disoriented. So what I want to do is sort of, for those who are in that space, I want to pull everyone back a little bit and just remind everybody that the information you need on where you're going to go next, that trajectory is already inside you somewhere. It's built up in all of the experiences that you've had throughout grad school, throughout undergrad, and we're all sort of in this phase of self-actualization where we're learning what we want to do and what we don't want to do. And your career, at the end of the day, this is just a drop in the bucket in the span of your life. This is one phase in a really long journey that's a series of stepping stones. And each stepping stone that you make, of which the PhD is only one, there could be many little phases in between, but each of these stepping stones is a new opportunity to grow and to learn something new about yourself. And I love the comment that was made earlier where, you know, the person that you are as a PhD when you finish is a very different person from when you started. You learn a lot and you grow a lot along the way. And that information can be really helpful to you as you decide where you want to go next. So we'll go a little bit through my path and sort of what I went through to get to where I am now. But bear in mind, my path is going to be very different from your path. And if down the road, if you ever have questions or want to bounce ideas off, I'm always happy to have a chat with you and sort of, you know, help you be that soundboard. But yes, so disclaimer, what works for me might not work for you. You might have very different priorities, but let's just use this as a model and see where that takes us. So let's start at the very beginning. So I was a starry-eyed undergrad, and I enrolled at Dalhousie University to get my bachelor's in neuroscience. And I was really interested in human behavior. I wanted to understand how humans worked, and I really loved science into this field. And undergrad was great. I got a lot of research experience and listened to all the lectures. And what I learned most from those 4 years in Halifax was that I loved brains. And I still do. I think they're beautiful, elegant things. And it's amazing that this lump of tissue can contain all of our memories, decisions, feelings, that the entirety of our experiences can be housed in this tiny lump of tissue in our heads. And that's a sentiment I still keep to this day. So with that, I decided, well, I really love neuroscience. I really want to dig more into it. I want to go into research and I want to be a professor. And I'm sure we've all been in this place before, right? After my bachelor's, I decided I wanted to get some more research experience. I also wanted to travel a bit. I was a big nerd and I always wanted to go to Japan for a while. So through one of my contacts at Dow, I got set up with a lab in Osaka, Japan, the Osaka Bioscience Institute, where I worked there for 14 months doing sleep research as a research assistant. The work was really interesting, but it was also really challenging for me. As a junior researcher, just got her bachelor's degree, to be in a foreign country, not just to learn the research and how the lab operates, but also the cultural differences, the communication differences, and how to interact and get along with other people. So it was challenging in its own right, but what I took from that experience was that, I need a particular kind of team dynamic to be able to function well in research. A lot of stuff was toxic there for a lot of reasons, and I won't get into those, but those were all learning opportunities for me to sort of understand more the kind of environment that I wanted to be in for my future career. Using this research experience, I got accepted to Northwestern University for their neuroscience program. And in this, I enrolled in the Department for Physical Therapy, and my initial research was on Parkinson's disease. And I had met this amazing researcher who was my mentor, my PI here on this, and we had cooked up this project together, and I was really excited. And everything seemed ready to go, easy peasy. Well, another challenge happened where my PI did not get tenure, which is sort of the nightmare that faces PhD students when that happens. So what he ended up doing was moving institutions, and I ended up staying at Northwestern. I chose to stay. So what happened was that halfway through my PhD, I ended up being connected with another advisor, where the dynamic again became very difficult. He did animal work while I did human work. He and his lab were in a completely different building from mine. So I ended up doing a lot of work alone. I didn't have many people to teach me new things. And similarly, I didn't have students or juniors to bounce ideas off of. And it became very difficult for me to do research in this kind of environment. So the things that I had learned from this was that I need some sort of mentorship, and I need someone to look up to and to learn from. Similarly, I need a team to be held accountable. I can't work alone in isolation. And this was something that I had started to learn about myself. So through my PhD, I was having these difficulties. My motivation was dropping by the day. I didn't want to do research. And I was sort of stuck in this place where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I sort of looked like this. For those who are familiar with Lego grad student, I very much looked like this, where I was just sort of thinking, why am I here? And why do I even like science? Like, why should I even continue in this direction at all? And to answer this question, I had to sort of be very introspective with myself and to think about, well, what is it that brought me to science in the first place? So what I want you to do, and this is the interactive portion of things, I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. Oh no, we saw the spoilers. I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds here. I want you guys to put in the chat, what was that moment for you where you decided I want to be a scientist? Like, what was that pivotal moment or influence that made you want to go in this direction? Please fill that out in the chat. I want to hear, but I'm going to put on a 30-second timer right now. Research methods course, yeah. So sometimes it can be a course, sometimes it can be a professor, a single professor that changed your life. Watching a TED Talk, that's a good one. A book on neuroscience that you got as a present. High school science teacher, amazing. So yeah, these are all really good examples. The ATP synthase protein, nice, super specific, I love it. Yeah, sometimes it's one little thing that just sparks such a sense of in you that you're like, yes, I want to pursue this forever. And that's what set you on this trajectory. And to try and motivate myself, I was trying to go back to that place where it all started internally for me. So as you can tell from the slides, my influence was Bill Nye and Beakman's World. When I was a little kid, I would come home and I would watch these science shows. And I thought these were so cool, the way they did all of these cool experiments and effects and explosions and, you know, discovering things and talking about it. And I had so much fun with it. And I thought, man, if only there was a way I could bring this back into my life when this PhD thing isn't fulfilling at all. What that turned into was a new creative outlet. So when I wasn't doing research, what I was doing was getting into education and outreach. So Brain Awareness Week, for those who are unfamiliar, is something that happens every year where we take a week across the world to try and educate the public on neuroscience and the benefits of brain research. And for Brain Awareness Week that year, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to give some talks and teach some kids about science and get them excited. And hopefully that'll get me excited. And then I can finish this whole PhD thing. So me and a couple of other grad students, we started a group and we went to a local elementary school and we held a brain fair where we had all these activities. We had, you know, brains that, you know, of different animals that the kids could look at. They could color in pictures of neurons. We were teaching them all of these different concepts here. I had a ton of fun and it was really successful. We had like 200 people, I think, that first weekend. And we're like, oh, wow, this is something that's really interesting and maybe something that we can build upon. So with that initial success, I kind of got a taste for it. And I started thinking a lot more about science communication and the idea of translating these complex concepts to the public. Because I know for a lot of us who've experienced this, neuroscience can be a very intimidating subject. If you try and tell, I kind of dread when people ask, like, what did I get my degree in? Because a lot of them will go, ooh, and then they won't want to talk to you anymore. I'm sure some of us have felt the same way. So this idea of making neuroscience more accessible to people was something that was very appealing to me. And it got me all excited and it helped sort of bring back some of that spark with the rest of my work. So one of the tips then that I'm going to encourage you to think about is think about what you do when you're not doing science. What are some other things in your life that you find fulfilling? And how does that tell you something about the kind of person you are? For example, is there a sports team that you're a part of? And is it because of the team dynamic that you find that really fulfilling? You enjoy working with other people? Is there a certain craft or art that you like doing, like that sense of mastery over something? That could be something really fulfilling. And you know, the different things that you do either in science or when you're not doing science, these can also be really important sources of information to teach you what you find fulfilling in life and to help you guide your decisions in the future. So the science communication thing that I had stumbled upon and that I really liked, I started doing more and more of it. We started giving talks at museums. We were giving talks for the Boy Scouts, different school groups. We were running workshops. Then we started teaching teachers how to talk about neuroscience in their classroom. Then I created a curriculum for science communication because I realized other scientists are really bad at communicating. So how can we train people better on this? So this was a course that I taught in the graduate school, teaching different ways in which we communicate science, either verbally, like through writing, networking, and so on. And then that group of grad students that we had started at the very beginning for Brain Awareness Week, that got bigger and bigger. And it eventually turned into the Northwestern University Brain Awareness Outreach Group, which ended up winning the Society for Neuroscience Conference Award, the Next Generation Award in Society for Neuroscience in 2013. So this just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And that just proved to me that this was something that was fueling me and that I could find momentum in when everything else was so frustrating in my life. So this was all well and good. And after I walked off the stage getting this prestigious award from Society for Neuroscience, the members of my committee pulled me aside and they said, look, you did well, we're really proud of you, but you like really need to graduate because you can't stay here forever. So that was enough to really, kick my butt into gear and put my things aside for a while and really focus on my research, having done all of this stuff and sort of rediscovered my spark. And I hunkered down, I did the experiments, got my work done, eventually graduated. And then I ended up staying with my current lab as a postdoc, not just to clean up loose ends with regards to publication, but also to think about what I wanted to do next, which I'm sure some of you have already done or are thinking of doing. As a postdoc, what's sort of the next step? I had tried to give academia a solid go, being an independent postdoc now with a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more know-how. And I decided, you know what? I tried, it's really not for me. The level of expertise that you need to be an academic, to be so focused on a certain topic, it just wasn't my style. I had too many different interests and I wanted to sort of diversify the kinds of things I could get into, which is very difficult in academia. At the time, I think academia still has sort of this old guard where a lot of professors try to discourage you from considering alternative career paths. And I think over the past few years, schools have gotten a lot better about promoting different options, in part because of this. One example is the series of talks by NeuroSphere, which is a really good way to sort of get the word out about different options. But at the time, for me, when I graduated, a lot of people who didn't want to go into academia, they were thinking about either pharma or consulting, and those were your two. So you could pick one or the other. Well, I didn't have the wet skills to go into pharma. I was doing physiology on humans, which didn't work so well in the pharma space. So I was thinking about consulting. Is this something that maybe I want to do? Because all of the other options were pretty confusing and I didn't want to really get into that. Well, in order to understand this path that I wanted to take, I needed to understand the landscape a little bit better. And my third tip for you is to leverage the informational interview. And for those who are unfamiliar what the informational interview is, it's really leveraging the people you know that are in places that you want to be and simply asking them for more information. You're not asking for a job at all. That's kind of gauche, actually. Don't do that. But what you want to understand is what their work is like, how they got to a certain place. You're just asking for information. So at that time, I was interested in a consulting career. I went to another classmate of mine who had graduated from the department and was now working for Navigant, a major consulting company. And I sat him down, I took him out for coffee, and I said, I want to understand what consulting is like for you. Tell me what your day-to-day is like. Tell me what a week is like for you in this space. And he said, well, at 5:30 a.m. every Monday, I'm on my way to the airport so I can go fly over to see a client. I work on site with them every day through the week. In the evenings, I have enough time to work out and have a beer before going to bed. And a lot of people do it for a couple of years. They make a lot of money, but a lot of them also burn out and move into other things. And for me, that did not sound appealing. Now, for a lot of people, they have the bones to be able to do this, and it is a very lucrative position. There are tons of consulting companies out there. They are a very valid opportunity for many PhDs, especially those in neuroscience. But for me, it wasn't the kind of lifestyle I wanted, and that's okay. So I decided, okay, maybe this is something I don't want to do, which means now I've exhausted all my options and I have to wander the earth desolate, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. Now, when you've exhausted these more sort of these other options that you see all over the place, then you kind of have to dig deep to find the right path. And you have to look deep inside yourself and think about, what do I find most fulfilling? What do I want to do? What matches the skills that I have and where I want to be? And to try and find an industry and a position that best suits that for you. So one of the things that I want you to put in the chat again, and I'll leave off the timer. We'll just, do the honor system here. Think about what you enjoy most in science. What have you enjoyed most? And similarly, what do you not enjoy? What would you happily get rid of? And similarly, what are some new skills that you want to learn? So I have a couple of examples here that might apply to you. Either you like them or you don't. Either is okay. This is your journey. But some aspects of the PhD experience and some different skills that we've learned along the way, think about which of these resonate most to you and throw it in the chat. What do you love most about science and about the process so far that you would want to see in a future career? So we'll take 30 seconds here, see what resonates with people. There's nothing in the chat. No one likes anything. There we go. Creativity and flexibility in finding solutions, societal impact. That's a big one for a lot of academics. Having to wait so long for publications. They want something a little faster. Coming up with innovative solutions, absolutely. Okay, now think of some examples of things that you don't like in academia. Like, well, what is it about doing the PhD? What are some things that you don't want to do in your future job? Okay, so writing ethics and research papers, asking for money, grant writing, absolutely. All these tedious things. Academia is too specialized and too far removed from real world problems. So again, going back to societal impact, right? So yeah, these are all great examples. I'm sure a lot of them, a lot of people identify with a lot of these. Working alone, absolutely. That was a big one for me. So based off of my experiences so far in grad school and in Japan and in undergrad, I had a vague idea about what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to go. There were, like, for example, I didn't want to work alone. I wanted to work in a team. I needed a culture that was a positive team environment. I needed a sense of mentorship and accountability. What I also decided, and learned through the PhD was, for me, what I really enjoyed was big ideas. I'm a big ideation sort of person. I love talking about different possibilities for where science can go, connecting different ideas together and talking about those, discussing them with other people, formulating some sort of a strategy or plan. I love all of that stuff. That drives me. It's great. What I didn't like so much was data collection. So the slog of having to go through every day and do all of that stuff. Troubleshooting makes me very angry, and I accept that about myself. And then also reading papers. A lot of academic papers are very poorly written and convoluted, and that's my opinion. Some people are very good at that. But I didn't like reading papers. I didn't like diving into the literature. I loved writing, but so these are the things I decided, okay, I can keep, and these are the other things that I can get rid of. Perfect. Now, at the time, I was trying to think about what I wanted to do. I had this list of wants and don't wants and things that I wanted to learn. The question is, where do I want to take it? Because I didn't want to do pharma, didn't want to do consulting. I have to find something else. Now, stumbling into this field of consumer neuroscience was actually kind of serendipitous. But in a way, sometimes the stuff just falls in your lap. Serendipity plays a big part of it. So in Chicago, there was a company, Nielsen Neuroscience, where they're a big company where they do consumer marketing neuroscience studies, basically using neuroscience tools to look at how people respond to commercials, for example. And at the time, they were recruiting people for participation in their studies. And to participate in one study with Nielsen Neuroscience paid $75 for the hour, which for a grad student is pretty darn good. So I started volunteering for these studies, and I would show up at their lab. They would put an EEG cap on my head, sit me in front of a TV with a webcam and some sort of doohickey on the bottom of the screen. I'd have a sensor on my finger measuring something, I didn't know what. And then they would show me, a car ad 3 times, and then they would give me my money and tell me to go. And I thought, what are they doing? Because this is something that I'm sort of familiar with, but you're doing it in a very strange way. And I started reading up about consumer neuroscience. Neuromarketing is sort of the hokier term for it, but just understanding this field a little bit more and sort of where it's going. And I realized, first off, a lot of consumer neuroscience was marketers trying to do neuroscience and not the other way around. And I also realized that the field as a whole is very young. There's a lot of people trying to understand how these two fields work together, and a lot of the definitions and standards hadn't really been established yet in the field. If you go to 8 different vendors and you ask them what consumer engagement is, some of them will have definitions that are very true to the data, and others are a little bit more hand-wavy and nuanced. So it was an interesting field that was just starting to take shape. And there were not a lot of people with the kind of neuroscience authority that the field really needed. And I thought, here is something that maybe I can get into that sounds really interesting. Now, the next thing to do, of course, would be to leverage my network, find an informational interview, and learn a little bit more about the field. But I didn't know anybody in consumer neuroscience. So what do? If you don't have a network, find one. LinkedIn is always going to be a place where you can find all sorts of different companies and people in the area to learn things. There's also several PhD groups out there that can get in, that specialize in the transition to different kinds of industries. I know many of you are probably familiar with Cheeky Scientist. They're expensive, but the network, in my view, is worth it. And they do have some pretty good learning materials for how to ace interviews and resumes and so on. Free the PhD is another really great group. They do a lot of different seminars and things. Even the people that are on the panel today, so Bahare and Thomas, they're going to be a great resource, having worked with the transition of PhDs as well. So they're great people to connect with on LinkedIn after the call too. So for me, I signed up for these groups. I started actively looking for people in this space and eliciting them for advice and insight on whether this is something I can potentially get into. My 5th tip is to know your value. And this leads to sort of a story of why I've put The Game by Neil Strauss on this slide. For those who are unfamiliar, this is a book written for pickup artists on how to pick up women. It's a disgusting book, don't read it. And there is a particular technique in here called the neg. And the neg is when you give someone sort of a backhanded comment or compliment, sort of subtly putting them down in a way. But the point of it is to sort of attract you to them anyway, because you feel insecure about it. This is a particular story where I was trying to find opportunities in the consumer neuroscience arena. I got put in touch with the CEO of a company in another state. And I was there for the informational interview. I was asking lots of questions, like what sort of work did you do? What clients did you work with? Getting a lot of information. And he was kind of feeling out whether I should go work for this guy. And he basically said, listen, you're good, but you're not that good. We have a lot of PhDs on staff. They do a lot of things like big data and machine learning approaches, which I know you don't have a lot of experience in. So there's a lot that you really have to learn. But if you come work for us, I mean, obviously you can't be the manager at one of our labs, but if you come stay with us and take a pay cut, I know it's less than a postdoc salary that we can offer you, but the standard of living is a lot lower. And eventually we can make you the manager of one of our new labs that don't exist yet. And it's a great job for a great company. And I was very torn because here was a guy offering me an opportunity in the space that I wanted to get into. And it left me a very, very bad taste in my mouth. So the tip that I give you here, sometimes people will act like this. And for a lot of academics wanting to get into industry, the first job is always the most important. And a lot of us are so eager to leave that we might take on opportunities that are not a good fit for us just because we're so eager to get out. My advice to you is to hold the line, know your value. You have so much more to offer than you think you do. And don't let anyone, in another company or another industry try to lowball you thinking, oh, this person's desperate and needs to get out of academia. I can lowball them in this way. Don't let people do that. Not everyone's going to do it, of course. But that is something that exists. And I think for a lot of PhDs who are just so eager to get out, it's really tempting to just take the opportunity and run. Don't do it. Keep your options open, know your worth, and go for a company that understands the value that you bring to the table. So it was tough. I had to say no to this guy, even though I really, really wanted to work in consumer neuroscience. I said, you know what, I'm going to wait it out and we're just going to see what happens. Now, through another networking opportunity, I got put in touch with this company named iMotions. And just checking on time here. So iMotions is actually the software that is being used by a lot of consumer neuroscience companies out there. And what they do is they work with all of the different sensors for collecting data in consumer neuroscience. So when I was wearing the EEG headset, looking at the doohickey on the screen is actually an eye tracker for tracking eye movements. That thing on my finger was for measuring skin conductance, which is a measure of arousal. And the webcam was to measure my facial expression, so how I reacted to the commercial, right? What this software does is it integrates all these different inputs and provides analytics and visualizations for researchers who are not familiar with neuroscience. It's a Danish company. They sell the software and the sensors, and then also provide training and support to these clients. And they had a position open for something called a product specialist. And what a product specialist does is they basically act as a source of expertise on the sales side. So they provide sales demonstrations and consulting for clients on how to conduct research and how to use these tools. There's a lot of traveling clients in on-site workshops. There's other training events that the specialists would do. There's a lot of science communication involved. There's giving webinars and writing blog posts and also training the internal teams on the science behind the product. And I thought, well, this is interesting. This position seems like a fit, and it's a company that is sort of the doorway into this space that I want to get into. Let's have a look and let's see how it goes. And I was interviewing this company as much as they were interviewing me. And what I was trying to think about is, based off of what I know and the stepping stones I've taken to get here and what I've learned, is this a good place for me and the skills that I have and the aptitudes I have and the places that I want to go? Well, it's a company with a positive team culture and an international presence, being a Danish company. And when they asked me, do you have any experience working internationally? I said, well, I worked in Japan for a year and I learned a lot about how to communicate across different teams and how to, have conflict resolution across different groups that speak a different language. And I learned a lot there. I said, oh, that's great. A position that requires broad knowledge of neuroscience applications, which is something I wanted. They said, how's your scientific communication skills? I said, well, I won this award and I taught it to people. So here's some materials that I have. This was just a hobby, but this might be helpful. And, as part of the position, since it is a sales position, it focuses a lot more on the big ideas that our clients come with, but we're not doing any of the data collection or execution. So that works out really well with what I like and don't like. And it provides me with the ability to diversify my skill set and learn new fields. And also provides the opportunity to grow and learn from a business in sort of that middle stage where there's a lot of rapid growth. All of these things appealed to me, and a lot of what I brought to the table appealed to them, even though they were all sort of disparate sources of experiences and information. It all sort of came together really well. So I joined their team 5 years ago, and I've been really happy and learned a lot from them. So for you, what you might want to think about, not just the skills that you bring to the table and what you want to do, but also what's the kind of environment or the kind of company that you want to be in? Because a lot of these factors also come into play. Do you want to work for a small company versus a big company? A small company, you're going to learn a lot of different positions really fast because everyone does a little bit of everything. A big company has more structure, a little bit more stability, but people tend to have a little bit narrower of a role. So different dynamics play out differently for people. Are you more team oriented and do you rely more on collaboration, or do you want to be more of an individual contributor? A lot of us are individual contributors working in research. So is this something that you want to move more into? Are you interested in mastering a certain role and sticking with that for a really long time? Or are you a career ladder climber and you want to move into management and other more senior positions? It's okay to identify which one of these works best for you. Do you want to specialize in a certain kind of knowledge base and be an internal expert? Or do you want to move more into people management, which requires a completely different skill set and aptitude compared to each other? And then also logistics. Do you want to work remotely? That's a thing now, which is cool to think about. Or do you really need that sort of in-person interaction? Are there hybrid options available? These are other options you want to think about. And also diversity, especially for women and underrepresented communities. You want to find a company that shows good diversity. When you see women in senior positions and people of color, is that something that matters a lot to you? Can you identify potential mentors that can help take you to where you want to be? All of these things are important considerations when you're assessing a new workplace. So that sort of takes us to where we are now. In my time at iMotions, I've had the opportunity to help translate neuroscience concepts to different industries, not just in the marketing space, but also automotive, gaming, usability, defense, education, architecture even, which is really fun. It's boggled my mind, the different applications of knowledge here. And I've had the opportunity to work with an amazing team, and now to take care of other people. I'm taking care of the specialist teams and helping them grow and develop their skills. And this is, again, just one stepping stone for me, and I don't know where my path will go, but for now, it's not too bad. And everything that I've done has led up until this point. So for you, where you are, just to summarize some of the tips that we've gone through the presentation here, think about the shape that your career wants to take, not necessarily the job you want or the goal or the destination, but what skills do you have and what skills do you want to foster? What environment or culture do you want to be in? And how do you want it to progress? What kind of professional do you want to be, basically? Think about your hobbies, what fulfills you, and what you like most about your job in science. What does it tell you about yourself? Experiences do you want to keep moving forward? What can you let go? And what do you want to learn? Leveraging your contacts is super important, not just to find opportunities, but also to learn more about the landscape that you might be going into. If you don't have contacts, make some. There's tons of opportunities online to find good groups and to network and find people in spaces that you want to be in. And finally, know your value. Know the skills that you bring to the table. You put a tremendous amount of work in to get an advanced degree. And it's not just the research you learn, it's all of those soft skills that Bahare talked about in her presentation. Those matter more than you think. And like she said too, some skills you might not even be aware of. So think about what you bring to the table, know that you're valued and that you have a skill set that's highly desirable, and use that to your advantage. So think, again, at the end of the day, if you're not sure where you want to go next, think about where your stepping stones have led you up until this point. All of these provide little hints about where your direction is going to go and what's going to be the most fulfilling to you. We've been on this earth long enough to know a little bit about that. So like I said, this was my path. It's going to be very different from your path, but if you want to connect at all, my LinkedIn is here on the bottom. Feel free to friend me. I'll also post my email address in the chat as well. But if you have any feedback or need to ask some questions, I'm happy to do that. And I hope this was helpful to people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And I think I'm going to assume that there's going to be a few questions that are coming through here. I see one already from one person here who asked, how long did it take for you completing the PhD until you got hired at iMotion? Yeah,
so I did my postdoc for about a year, gave it a good go, and then decided I was going to transition. I think between that and getting the job at iMotions, it was about 6 months.
And keep those questions coming through the chat. You can also feel free to unmute if you're comfortable with that, or go on camera. But I'm also just while we're waiting here for more questions to come in, I'll say as well, please take a moment if you haven't done so already to fill out a short little feedback survey for us. Just for, I know you folks are always getting feedback surveys. I'll just put a plug out there for us. This is really helpful for us so that we can share it with our funders and get some more funds to McGill for things like fellowships and large grant projects and things. So always helpful for us to have that feedback so we can share. So please, if you haven't, take a moment to do that. And also, let's get some more questions in the chat here as well. So I see another one here. What skill do you believe graduate students lack the most when transitioning to industry? Great question.
Yeah, this is sort of a meta answer, but like knowing your skills and how to articulate that, it sort of goes back to knowing your value. Because I think within academia, there's so much of what you do that gets taken for granted. The fact that you see a project from start to finish and that you have to handle all of the troubleshooting aspects in between, you're making things more efficient, you're documenting them, you're training other students, you're leveraging soft skills to network with other PIs or ask for help or get funding. Like all of these things are taken for granted in academia. So when it comes time to make that transition, like like Bahar said, a lot of stuff you're not familiar with, because a lot of the stuff we learn is super desirable in the world of industry, but we just don't notice it as a novel thing. We just know that it's there. So I think for a lot of people, being able to take what they've done and to tell a good narrative about it in a way that makes them marketable to employers, I think is super important. It's not something that they teach.
And to add something to Jessica saying about knowing, more or less what you want to be doing, I'll just share from my experience. The very first job I ended up in, it was literally the first job I applied for and first one I got an offer from, and didn't really think, I just needed a job yesterday, and ended up working for 2.5 years for a medical insurance company. And I didn't really want to work from that in that space, and much happier having left it. So I'd also say don't let that desperation, it will go away pretty quick, and you want to end up in a place where you're actually happy going to work every day. So.
Yeah, and a play that aligns with your values as well. It's very important. I have another question. Yeah, go ahead, Ajay.
Yeah. Do you think you've added more value to your resume? I'm finishing my PhD now. Congratulations. And I wonder how much value can a postdoc add if I want to move to an industry job? Great question.
I'm sure Bahar and Thomas also have their opinions on this. I would say no, but I think for me, like, I did my postdoc just to sort of clean up some ends, and I didn't really learn anything new as a postdoc. If anything, it just solidified my desire to move somewhere else. So it was good in that regard, but it didn't really add anything to my resume. I think if your postdoc gives you a marketable skill for an industry job, so say you're moving into a company that uses a particular molecular technique, and your postdoc gives you that, and that makes you a more appealing applicant, then yeah, that's something that you can consider. Also, don't sell yourself short on that regard too. I mean, one of the things you can do as a PhD is learn a lot of information really quickly. So even if you are lacking a skill for a particular position, you can always learn that on the job. I mean, you don't have to take a postdoc at a lower salary in order to learn one technique that you might take to a pharma company. A lot of stuff you're going to be learning there anyway. So yeah, I think it very much depends on your trajectory again. But in my opinion, a lot of the time a postdoc doesn't add much. But Bahar, what do you think, or Thomas?
I think, yeah, as you explained, I agree with you. But like, if someone does a postdoc with collaboration with industry, with a company, and then, yeah, so it added the industrial experience. Otherwise, if it would be still a research, so it's like what the person already has done during their PhD. So it's like more experience in research, but still doesn't add any industrial. But yeah, as a collaboration with a company in industry, it would add industrial experience.
Yes, I agree with you both. Actually, is there any sense for you to do a postdoc, like join maybe a well-known researcher in this field, in this specific field that you want to evolve in? Maybe yes. As Jessica said, you can maybe find firms and opportunities that will fulfill your objectives in the industry, maybe with more financial resources, with more team with you. So it depends. Again, it's always to see each opportunity by each opportunity. I think the team, also the lab team, could be a very good asset or not in your skills development, and maybe new methodologies, new processes, new resources. Yeah, again, it depends on your objectives and path.
See another question. Thank you for that. See another question here around many of us, and I think this is a really excellent question, actually, which is that we're used to writing academic CVs, but not necessarily non-academic ones. Wondering if you could share any tips or resources around, how to revamp an academic one into a more of an industry-friendly, more attractive to industry employers. Any tips for that?
Keep it short, so 2 pages. A cover letter matters more than you think, at least for me, having done hiring. Publications don't matter so much, or education even. Like, you can always mention the cover letter that you have a PhD. A lot of the time I would move education and publications to the very end. Sometimes I might not even include publications at all if it doesn't matter so much for the job. If it's like a sales position, for example, I mean, you can just say publications available on request, and then that buys you a little bit more space. And then usually at the top, I would say like relevant work experience, skills, hard and soft, and a couple of examples of that, and then any sort of relevant extracurriculars. At least that's what I did for me. But probably for Thomas and Bahare, you guys have seen many more CVs and resumes than I have.
No, you did it all good.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Well, scientific publications could be an added value if it's something relevant for the job that you want to apply to. But yeah, again, yeah, shorter, so 2 pages. Well, if you maybe more senior than just I don't know, maybe you have another life before your PhD and postdoc, and maybe you will have extensive experience in different fields. You can even write a CV that take more than 2 pages. It's accepted. Well, at least here in Canada. I don't know for USA, but I guess it's accepted as well. Yeah, just make the emphasis and put the emphasis on your realizations, maybe the processes, methodologies, technological stack, scientific stack, something that could be, concrete and for the employer to project himself with you in the team or in the firm. Feel free to even for your cover letter to use real life situation, real challenges you faced. Yeah, so really concrete stuff that could help them and to believe you and to reassure them that you're the good fit and you will learn quickly and adapt to their environment. Yeah.
I see another question here, which I'm sure many of you, especially those coming up on the end of your PhD or towards the end, years 3, 4, 5 plus, around any tips for staying motivated throughout the PhD. Before I hand that off, I'll just share one thing that my PhD advisor shared with me, which I found particularly helpful, which is that you are most tired when you're at the finish line. And that's actually got me through that finish line because I was at that point of exhaustion. And like, again, that event horizon for me, I did a PhD in the humanities, so I wasn't looking for, I wasn't going to see a lucrative career on the other side of it with a PhD in music composition, let's say. So that was something that I found really helpful to find out, is that, again, like that is very true. When you're most tired is right when you're about to finish. So keep that in mind. And it will be worth it. That's the other thing too. It's hard to say this, or see it when you're in the middle of a PhD, because it's a challenge. It's a really big challenge on so many different fronts. I'll just say that there's that moment when you come out of a PhD into the outside of academia into industry, where you realize that everything that you've put yourself through has prepared you exceptionally well for the realities of working life, because it's never going to be quite as bad, not nearly as difficult as a PhD was. But anyways, I'll see if anybody else has anything to add to that as well.
Yeah, you are not alone. So there are actually a lot of communities, of PhD communities that are helping each other throughout all the stages of the PhD. Just to name a few, I don't know if I'm going to write it at the same time. Papa PhD is someone, David Mendes, who's doing different podcasts and interviewing people around their challenges during their doctoral project. There's also Taisez-vous, which is an organization that helps PhDs during the dissertation stage. Well, not only, but yeah, so it exists actually a lot of different communities. You can find them on LinkedIn quite easily if you write, just keywords. So yeah, I think that's also a good thing to do, just to share your concerns and your doubts and your challenges, and just, yeah, you'll find the solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think community is great. And these are really good examples. I think I had a professor give a really good piece of advice for people starting out. It's like, outside your PhD, you have 3 options. There is sports or hobbies, family and friends, or service to others. Pick 2. And those are going to be the 2 things that'll help bolster you. You can't do it all. That's really tough, but like pick 2 and just have those be your retreat. A lot of lack of motivation is just, it's exhaustion. And as Andre said, it is the most tiring when, like, it's darkest before the dawn. So keep that in mind. But yeah, those are usually the 3 categories.
I think we have another question. So yeah, in a CV, so do you put a PhD as part of work, or a work experience, or education? I think it's a very interesting question.
Yeah, you actually can put it in both sections. I will describe the PhD, the doctoral projects in the work experience section. You can just put the diploma in the education section. But yes, that's a job. I mean, that's a researcher job. All communities are always speaking about, PhD integration in the job market, but we are speaking about pursuing their career in or outside academia. I mean, you are doing quite the same job than the researchers who are titular in academia. So yes, that's a work experience. Not all firms will recognize the PhD as a work experience, but they should be. They should value the PhD as a work experience. We do, and a lot of our clients do as well.
Any other questions? Right. Well, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah, we can keep it open as well. I'll just say for like a couple moments here, because I know sometimes we want to sort of simulate the environment of having a few of you be able to sort of linger and ask some more personal questions if you'd like here. But again, thank you all for joining us. Again, if you haven't yet, please take a moment to fill out our feedback survey. Always very helpful for us as well. But I think we'll stay on here for a couple more minutes in case anybody wants to introduce themselves or ask any other questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we're gonna hold another workshop session on Thursday. So it's gonna be more towards commercialization, and if you have like an innovation, or even if you don't have like a big idea, but you're thinking about commercialization and you want to know the pathway on like securing funding, IP, etc. So it's going to be the same time, so from 3 to 4:30 on Thursday, March 10th. So I just put the link in the chat. So feel free to register if you ever if you'd be interested in joining, or if you think of someone who would be interested. So I'm gonna stay a little bit more if you have more questions.
We've just got a couple more folks here. Not sure if you have any questions for our panelists or.
If you want to ask more other questions, we can stop the recording if you feel more comfortable. Let us know. Stop recording.